Now, before we talk about the prospects for Liverpool and Tottenham, the draw for the Champions League has been made. And, of course, after the World Cup, that's going to be hugely significant in terms of how their season pans out. I mean, in some ways, you'd say that getting a difficult opponent and going out in the Champions League might help you further on in the Premier League season. But, of course, they'll be wanting to compete on all fronts possible. So Chelsea have got Dortmund, Liverpool have got Real Madrid, Manchester City have got a good draw against Leipzig, and it's Milan for Tottenham Hotspur. And then in the Europa League, Manchester United have drawn Barcelona, which is just a mouth-watering tie. But that's going to be tricky for them because Barcelona seems to have a little bit of a bounce in their step at times this season. Look, for Liverpool and for Tottenham, they've got Real Madrid, they've got Milan in their games, and that's going to be significant afterwards. But judging on the game yesterday, what can we kind of expect from them when we come back from the break? Are Liverpool back then? Is that it, done and dusted, recovered from the Leeds defeat, everything gone, all rosy in the garden?
Well, I've said their problem has been, not just now after 15 games, after 10 games this season in the Premier League has gone for them. They can't win it. They know how strong the Man City are, and its motivation has been their problem. When you're used to challenging for the title and lifting trophies like they've done, Champions League, Darren mentioned it, Premier League, for you to be out of it and so far adrift so early, where is the motivation? I think the motivation for them is the Champions League. I mean, they want a better draw than that, obviously. I mean, yesterday, the positive was that little man there, Mo Salah, who's back to his best. I mean, he was clinical. Fantastic touch from Núñez there, and he gives it to Mo and he tucks it away. It's just one movement. So he was the positive, but it was a scratchy result. I mean, the first half they played okay. It's the first away win of the season, which is incredible. But they dug in the end, and they had to fight the result. They need to get the results because as much as the players might not want to be motivated to get into to fight for the championships, if they're not, Liverpool Football Club are not in the Champions League next season, which means their best chance at the moment, you would suggest, is to win the Champions League, which with a draw like Real Madrid is like incredibly hard. So the club must be in there because if they want to continue signing the best players will demand Champions League football. So they're in a dilemma at the moment, but positive result.
On that point you've mentioned about the motivation, for some weird reason, that Madrid fixture for me is an interesting one because against City, it's almost easier to pick yourself up for the big games because it's the big occasion. We need to be there. It's all of the smaller teams, that quote-unquote smaller teams that they've struggled against. The Leeds result should never happen. All of the other results should never happen. So maybe with this tie, it's not the tie you want, but it's a big one. It's the fourth time in 6 seasons they're having to play each other. It's like, okay, well, we want a bit of revenge. As you mentioned, Mo Salah, like he still needs to get the revenge for everything that's happened. So maybe that might give them a bit of a boost that we've got nothing to play for. We have to give this everything. And sometimes giving that everything in those big games leaves you tired for the next one because you literally give everything. The City game, great example. That was one of their best performances of the season. Haaland was non-existent. What happened next game? Everyone's leggy, everyone's tired, you lose. So it'll be interesting to monitor how that up and down nature of their season goes when they're playing, whether it's the Big Six or Champions League games. But I think they will be hopeful that they could potentially do something to Madrid. I'm fascinated by the prospect of Núñez and Rudiger facing nothing.
Madrid won't want Liverpool, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're the last team they want to play as well. I mean, there's a lot. You could pick a few before Liverpool, so that is a nightmare time for both of them.
And you talk about the history there. When they beat them in the Champions League final, the one before last, Real Madrid, and it was the Sergio Ramos foul that caused Mo Salah to injure his shoulder, which if it didn't keep him out of the World Cup, but it stopped him performing to his best of his abilities at the World Cup. This time around, he's not going to the World Cup with Egypt, so he's got a month, 5 weeks to just cool his heels, just as he hits.
He's going to be waiting for
he is, and we say this about Haaland as well. But there's also a sense with Haaland that he just stays consistently at this high level. With Salah, it feels like he's coming up that hill, he's got the momentum. And the last thing he wants to do is for it to grind to a halt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was at the game. I was in a press conference yesterday, and Jurgen Klopp was talking about his insane numbers. And Salah, I think he's only failed to score in one of the last 7. I mean, the numbers here they all tell their own story. He is as near a guarantee of goals as you can get in the Premier League and in European football. And the finishes that we saw in the VT a second ago are vintage Salah. If you give him an opportunity to sniff out an opportunity, he will score those goals. I think as far as Liverpool are concerned, though, I don't think it indicates that they're back just yet, because I think in the second half Spurs were all over them, and if Spurs had started well, I think Spurs would have beaten them. I think as far as Real Madrid are concerned, the business that they've done in the summer is the kind of business Liverpool should have done in the summer. Tchouaméni, they bought in, the midfielder, from Monaco, is just outstanding. He's in his early 20s. He's going to be a huge player for the club. Valverde as well. He's versatile. He's got so many legs. He's got the legs to be able to.
He's like an octopus. By the way, just an aside here, which is quite interesting. Octopi only use 2 of their legs, so effectively they have 2 legs and 6 arms when they crawl along the bottom of the ocean. There you go. So there.
Helpful hints. Just in case you didn't know. And Rudiger as well. So they've improved the spine of the team. And I think as far as Thibaut Courtois is concerned, he's still one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And that's what Liverpool are up against. So even though they're finding their form again, they are up against the Real Madrid side that haven't just got fantastic players, and Modric in the back end of last season's Champions League in particular was insane in it, and so they've got Kroos, they've got Benzema, who's still scoring goals for fun, and of course they've got Vinicius Junior, who looks to have gone up to another level this season.
Scored the winning goal in the Champions League final.
Indeed, Camavinga, exactly. They are as near invincible in the Spanish league so far this season. In the Champions League, they qualified bloodlessly. I think Liverpool have got a real problem against them. I know they'll raise their game, as you were saying, but this isn't just a top side, it's a top squad with all the business that Liverpool should have done and now need to do to even get to their level.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens for Liverpool, certainly in the next couple of transfer windows, because it felt as though this one that's just gone, things were very much on hold for probably next summer rather than January, but whether or not those deals are able to be done in that time remain to be seen, and certainly whether Liverpool are in the Champions League going to be a big factor in all of that. What about Tottenham? I mean, if we can't read too much into that Liverpool result because of the issues with the performance, what do we read into Tottenham from that game? Because they lost the game, it certainly sounds, particularly in the second half.
Well, you continue to give teams a head start. You can't come back against them all. It's okay against the Bournemouths of this world, where you can come back because they're inferior. You give Liverpool a 2-goal start, it's very difficult. They tried in the second half.
Liverpool usually give people a couple of goals.
Yeah. And we're not talking about, Conte, I heard Conte afterwards talking about Liverpool and their quality. That's the first away win of the season for Liverpool, so they're not beating anyone away from home. But they beat Tottenham, and they beat them convincingly in the first half. Second half, Tottenham come back, but they wait until they're down before they have a go. I don't like it, and I don't have to like it. I don't like the way they play. They need to win, Kels. That's the bottom line. Is Antonio Conte needs to win. I mean, Jose Mourinho was top of December, and look what happened to him. As soon as the results started to wane, the fans got on their back. You're hearing grumblings now. They got booed off at half time. They're not happy with what they're seeing. Kulusevski's a massive plus coming back. Harry Kane's still scoring, so great. But they need to start playing on the front foot, and they need to win the head-to-heads. They got outplayed at Chelsea, and they got a 95th minute equaliser. They got a football lesson against Arsenal in the North London derby. Obviously, West Ham is a tricky game because it's a London derby, and they drew that one. They get beat off Newcastle, their emerging side. They got beat at Old Trafford, and they got beat yesterday. They need to win these head-to-heads, otherwise forget top 4.
But just a quick one on that. I mean, he's always said that he hasn't got the squad he wants. He needs more than one window.
He said that everywhere he goes.
Well, that's a fair point. But to be fair, we saw in the VT Eric Dyer with that he's attempting a header and it doesn't go. I don't think Eric Dyer is a centre half. I think he's a midfielder. He wants to sign Bastoni, the centre half at Inter Milan. Bastoni doesn't want to come. His contract is running down. I think they'll have another go in January. I think he's one of 2 centre halves that they need. I think they need a creative midfielder as well. A Tielemans, a Zaha maybe, one of those players in to just provide that kind of creativity in the final third.
You do, though. You think they need that. I agree with you, Darren.
Yeah.
But what does
The
he
manager
think he
doesn't
needs?
want that.
Yeah.
He had an opportunity to take Christian Eriksen back there. Christian Eriksen, he had it Inter Milan. He started him 13 times. He doesn't want the creativity. Some of the greatest players we've ever seen at Tottenham, Glenn Hoddle and Paul Gascoigne, they can't play for Antonio Conte. He doesn't want that type of player. He doesn't want that type of player.
Yeah.
That's not what he's looking for.
What you're alluding to, Tim, with Conte, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. It's what you see is what you get. It's not going to change. This is how he is. This is how he operates. I remember there was a Chelsea game against City where we literally camped maybe 14 players, don't know how, 14 players on the line, and we lost 1-0, and I was like, what am I watching? It's just the way when I saw Perisic starting in the second striker role, I thought, that's unusual. Then I realised he probably doesn't want to start Mora there. So injuries do come into it, but he's not the calibre of man that's going to try and bring this creative spark into his team. The issue that he then has is, when they actually play attacking football, go on the front foot, they look half decent.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, well, what would the lovely world be if you have a few of these players and did this all the time?
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen.
No, but let me make with this point. I don't care how he plays as long as they win, and nor do the fans as long as they win.
Yeah.
But if they don't win, then they do care.
I'll ask you this though: what is his expectation? this
Win a
season?
trophy. If he wins the Carabao Cup for Tottenham, he has had a success. He plays Tuesday night or Wednesday against.
Perfect. Beautifully put. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Amaya. Thank you very much to Darren as well. There is just one more round of Premier League fixtures before we go to the World Cup, and next week we'll be reflecting on all of them.